Welcome to the Midlife Leap, a lifestyle talk show for women in midlife. I'm your host, Sunita Johnson, and I am excited to share tips and interviews on topics ranging from business, career, current news, fashion, shopping, travel, health, and so much more. And because I'm known as the Midlife Leap Coach, from time to time, I'll share some of my signature Midlife Leap coaching tips. So come on, ladies, let's reignite and reimagine our midlife leap journey together. Would you take a pill that delays menopause until the age of 60 or 70? Well, a biotech firm, Celmatics, wants to bring a pill to market that will do just that. The goal is to curtail fertility issues and put off other health factors associated with menopause, such as heart disease and Alzheimer's. Pyre Beam, founder and CEO of Celmatics, compares egg storage to having money in the bank. Quoted in Fortune magazine, she said, "You can actually put the brakes on that and create a more efficient process where if you use fewer per month, then your bank account lasts for longer. We think we can shift the actual age of menopause from 50 out to 60 or 70. Sounds interesting, ladies? Well, the drug that Celmatics is developing mimics the anti-Mauryan hormone, which is important in the early stages of ovarian follicles by regulating the menstrual cycle and stimulating egg cell production. The company plans to be in clinical trials in 2023, testing its drug on women who are undergoing chemotherapy, one of the most common causes of premature menopause. So tell me, ladies, please sound off in the comments below and let me know, would you take a pill to delay menopause until the age of 60 or 70? Me personally, I'm sort of out of the loop on this one because I'm postmenopause. But honestly, I did acupuncture to try to delay menopause. And it actually balanced me out when I did go through menopause. So I guess I would take it. Please sound off below and let me know what you would do. Unfortunately, many women are suffering from pain because the medical community hasn't been able to provide relief. Naheed Oberfeld is a mindset coach. She works with women who are struggling with invisible conditions such as fibromyalgia and chronic fatigue syndrome. Naheed uses a mind-body tool known as emotional freedom technique to release the underlying causes of these physical conditions. It's often referred to as tapping or EFT, so you might have heard of it before. She helps her clients connect the dots between the past or present stressful situations that were suppressed and have turned inward to impact the body, causing the pain that they are experiencing today. Naheed has helped her clients relieve painful fibromyalgia flare-ups, arthritis joint pain, and chronic foot pain, and so much more. Naheed, thank you so much for joining us today.
Hi, thank you for having me. You know, this is a conversation that is so important, but it's hidden because so many women have various conditions that the medical community either tells them, oh, it's just in your mind. Oh, if you just exercise more, or oh, if you just ate right. And they've tried everything and they still are feeling like there's something wrong in them. So thank you for allowing me to have this conversation with you and bringing this message out.
So, you know what the biggest question is, like, pain feels so physical. So
Yes.
Help me understand, why is it important to release emotions to get to that sustainable pain relief?
That's an excellent question. And honestly, everybody who comes to me, they come to me first and foremost as a last ditch, right? They've worked through everybody. They've been through a physiotherapist, a physical therapist, and they don't understand why, if it's physical, right? If it's a physical situation, why can they not help me, right? They do this, they go to doctors and they're not able to get the help they need. And this is something that's within the last few years, it has become really revolutionary in research circles. I'm a biopsychology undergrad, so I spend a lot of time on what's happening in our brains. And we now know that the fight and flight center that's in our brains is not in our body. That is the main pain switch. That's what they call it. It's a pain switch that turns on our emotional feeling and connection to pain. And so what that means is, say if you have a broken bone, you would think, okay, that should hurt. But if that emotional pain switch in your brain had been turned off, you might not feel the hurt. So even though there's a physical connection that you might say, absolutely, I should be in pain, we now know that if you turn that pain switch off, if you have a process to turn that pain switch off, you will not be experiencing that level of pain, which is very revolutionary. And so what we have learned is the main reason we have chronic pain, I'm talking about chronic pain over here, okay, long-term pain. Chronic pain is because of chronic inflammation. And chronic inflammation is because our fight and flight part of our brain has been turned on and we're constantly under stress. We may not know it. It may be we're so used to it, it's like air. We're not, so many people come to me and say, well, I have a high stress tolerance. Like, well, that's why you probably have a high stress pain tolerance too, because the two are connected. As soon as your stress response gets activated, your pain response automatically gets activated. So if you de-stress yourself, deep breathing, for example, you're going to start noticing, oh, wow, that pain feels different. It doesn't feel so sharp. It doesn't feel so intense. Like you move a little looser. And so I just take that and I created a process around it. And I use a very specific technique that takes you to the next level. So that's not temporary. You can actually start experiencing this pain on a more long-term basis.
Okay, I'm sort of familiar with tapping. One thing that struck me, kind of made me a little bit nervous, is when you said, like, if you break your leg, your pain center is turned off. My first thought is, well, I need to know that something is wrong in my body, so I need that pain. What's the balance in that?
Yeah, so I'm glad you brought this up. So I have these workshops and I really get into the detail of this. There are two kinds of pain responses in our body. The first pain response is, say you touch something that's hot, right? You put your hand on something hot, you immediately pull your hand back because you feel the heat. It's the heat you feel. You wait a split second and now you feel the sting. Okay? They're actually, if you notice, they're two completely separate processes. The heat is when your body says, you're doing something wrong. It doesn't even go to your brain, by the way. It just goes straight from your fingertips to your spinal cord. Immediately, hand gets pulled back. You're not even thinking about it. You're not conscious of it. It's something called the parasympathetic nervous system. Doesn't matter what the name is. But the point is, you immediately pull it back. You have no choice in that. That's one thing that you need for survival, right? Because you don't want to be constantly touching hot stuff. The second one you also need for survival. I'll tell you why. So the second pathway, you touch it, again, you touch something hot, but this time the pain centers from your neurons, basically from your fingertip, travel to your brain. And that's where you make an emotional connection, because your body wants you to learn so that you don't keep touching stuff every day that's hot. It wants you to have a really strong negative emotional connection so that you learn very quickly not to keep doing this. So both of them have their purpose. They're both important. One is to immediately get you away from that situation. And the second one that goes to your brain and that fight and flight part is to educate you, to train you so that you don't ever do it again. Because otherwise you'd keep on doing it. You wouldn't have learned that lesson, if you will.
Okay. So someone has fibromyalgia. I actually know a few people who have that condition and been suffering for many years.
Yeah.
What is it? I mean, how does EFT help?
That's a really good question, and it's also very individual. So I'm going to give you a very broad answer to whether it's fibromyalgia, chronic pain, chronic fatigue syndrome. It's the same thing. So the first thing that I do is I lead people through a tapping round. Okay, so we tap on our various acupuncture points. That's why it's known as tapping, right? It's has acupressure principles and also psychology principles. We kind of marry them together, and in that process, like I said, I have this process where I lead people and I take them through, okay, so where is it hurting in your body today, right now, in this moment, 0 to 10, tell me what it is. So if we bring up a location, when you bring up the location, I go into the emotion. What's the emotion that you feel? It's a lot of sadness, a lot of anger. My body's breaking down. There's nothing I can do about it. What does my life look like, going down in the future? If I cannot do anything today, 5 years from now, what's that going to look like? So as we get into those emotions, I help them tune into what are those past experiences that made you feel the same way. A lot of helplessness and hopelessness, because if everybody's telling you, sorry, I can't help you, and this is kind of, you're on your own, figure it out or don't, but thank you, but goodbye, right? I mean, that's what a lot of people feel like they hear a lot. Those past experiences, that emotion has a connection to a past experience. And you might say, well, no, that doesn't make sense. I had a really good life. Everything went very well. But I promise you, if you go to somebody who's trained to take you down this path, they'll help you connect those dots. That's kind of what I was saying earlier, when you talked about the intro. It's about really understanding that pain does not show up in our body for no good reason. In fact, I start every conversation, and I didn't do it this time, but I start every conversation with the premise that our bodies are designed to heal themselves. So if they're not healing themselves, the question is, how are we preventing that? What are we doing that may be preventing it? And a lot of that has the emotions.
2 points. I was going to ask you, is tapping similar to acupressure? Mm-hmm. So I'm guessing that means that EFT is sort of derived from Chinese medicine as well. Okay.
So the EFT was created by a psychologist in the 1970s, an actual therapist and a PhD, and he was studying Chinese acupressure. And so he took the two together and he put it together, and that's how we got EFT.
Are you using the same chart that they use for acupressure and acupuncture to know which parts of the body to tap?
So we use a few of those points because there are thousands of points in acupuncture. But there are certain points that we know that are very, very common. So the inner eye point is all about fear, for example. The under the eye point is your stomach meridian. So for example, when somebody says, when I think about this experience, I get tense in my stomach. This is the stomach point that we want to look at. So there are very specific points we use all the time, just because the emotions related to that or the physical structures related to that come up over and over again. So we don't use nearly as many as the points on that an acupressure person or an acupuncturist would use.
Okay. And then the other point you made about heal your pain immediately came to my mind, Louise Hay.
Yes.
Yeah.
So this is a book that I use a lot. This is Louise Hay's book.
Mm-hmm.
And it really helps you understand. So sometimes people are disconnected from the emotions. In fact, oftentimes people are disconnected from their emotions. So I use this book to help them say, okay, you have lower back pain. Lower back pain typically means that you feel a lack of financial support. Does that make sense to you? Is that something that you are experiencing? So I can reverse engineer from the pain to the emotion. And usually people will say, yeah, at least to some degree, that makes sense to me. So I do use Louise Hay a lot. I find her book to be very helpful.
And then another point you made is that some people think that there's no way my pain is connected to my body because I had a great childhood.
Mm-hmm.
Yet I don't think a lot of people realize it could be as simple as their mom left the room that caused some kind of anxiety in them that they've had throughout their lives. It's not necessarily that your parent did anything wrong, but
Absolutely.
Everybody have different reactions to different situations. So
Absolutely. So in EFT circles, we say that there's a difference between a little T trauma and a big T trauma. So a big T trauma is the kind of stuff that you would actually think about where it's one very specific or maybe ongoing events, but that are really what we consider horrific. 90% of the people I come in contact with, they have little T traumas. Mm-hmm. That's where a pattern gets developed at a really young age. We all have various patterns, right? But we have a pattern that got developed at a young age. Somebody said something about something, and they made you feel not good enough in one particular way. I'll tell you, for me, for many, many years, it was my hair. Believe it or not, my hair is very different from most of the people in my family. And so they didn't make negative comments, but they made comments that were perceived to not be positive to me. And I had a lot of body image issues for many, many years, decades, because of my hair. And nobody was trying to do that. That was never the intention. It was my family, but they just didn't understand how my hair worked. So they would, use words that I didn't think were particularly flattering. No, and that's a little T trauma that I carried around with me.
Yeah, that makes me think of a childhood friend. She had a bunch of brothers, and she looked different than everyone in the family. So she was teased about that. Mm-hmm. she was probably adopted. She wasn't.
Yes.
But yeah, she had some issue. And brothers, they tease.
Of course. And they don't realize what they're saying and what they're doing. Again, I always go back to science because that's sort of from a science nerd, a science geek, but between the ages of 3 and 6 years old is when your entire perspective about life, money, health, relationships, all of that gets developed between 3 and 6 years old. And then the rest of the time, it's part of our subconscious until somebody else says something and you get triggered. And then it goes right back into that old pattern and we don't necessarily recognize it. And it's the same with these emotions and chronic pain. It's an old pain, an old wound that has not been cleared, and it's in your body.
And it's locked in those cells in our bodies. Like they remember, you may not remember, but they remember.
And I'll tell you a really good way to think about that is, when we go through a location, I used to drive at a place that had a huge speed bump. And the thing about the speed bump was you're coming right off the highway. So they're trying to stop you. So you're going pretty fast. We're not slowing down as much as we should. And so my body would recognize the speed bump was coming and I'd brace for it because I'd gone over it so many times. Even after they removed the speed bump, it took so long it took years for my body to stop bracing to anticipate it.
Mm-hmm. And we do that in relationships and a lot of different, because I had a traumatic childhood. So I understand, and you have to do the work in order to, and it's continuous. So some people are lucky they didn't have a lot of issues growing up. But tell me, how would a potential client reach you? And I guess the other point would be, at what point do they need to know that they should reach out to you?
So the way I tell people is that if you've gone to a lot of different doctors and or medical professionals and they have not helped you, come talk to me. Somebody with severe back pain came to me. Turned out he had gallbladder stones. So the doctor was the right person for him, right? So I'm not the person in that moment for something that is acute. I'm talking about chronic pain over here. So if you've gone to multiple people, especially for things like autoimmune diseases and fibromyalgia, we know it's very strongly linked to emotion. That would be a great time to have a conversation with me so that you don't have to spend the next several years of your life dealing with it. Yeah. And a good way for people to reach out to me is really through my website. It's oberfeldcoaching.com. And you can even just type in EFT coaching and you'll see my name pop up over there. But that's the best way to just kind of see what it's like and how EFT could help you in many different areas to start clearing up these traumas.
Okay. Do you provide like any type of free consultation or anything?
So when somebody actually gets on and has a look and they decide that, okay, they really want to move forward with this, that's the first thing I do is I offer a no obligation consultation. It's complimentary. And especially when we're talking about pain, my goal at that point is to help people understand, okay, where is the pain? Where's the emotional pain that is being stuck in your body, so that they have an idea. It's not like a big black box, okay, come heal me. That's not how it works. It's a partnership where it's revealed one step at a time. The next step begins to be revealed to them as to, okay, this is the next thing that makes sense for me to do.
Okay, and then they arrive at that aha moment. Who knew? If I'd known what I know now.
Right, and we're all in that place. We all have that experience, but we're not ready 6 years ago or 6 months ago.
Yeah, maybe they weren't open to something, because some people aren't open to something different, and then they have so much pain. It's like, you know what, I got to try something.
And that's when people come to me.
Yeah.
As one person said, he came to me in a Hail Mary moment.
Oh, gosh. Poor thing. I'm so sorry. But he came. He made it.
Right.
Thank you so much. Thank you for joining us.
Thank you.